Happiness through curiosity on the Ranveer Show. Do you have anything to say about meat? Because it's one of those. I mean, we're living in an age where there are extreme views on both ends, right? The one thing I've got to know through the show, through talking to healthcare professionals, coaches, etc., is that everyone's bodies are slightly different. So there's no one diet that suits everyone. But when it comes to heart disease, I often hear people talking about red meat, especially.
Yeah.
So as a cardiac surgeon, where do you stand on red meat? And where do you stand on meat in general? And I have no strong preconceived notions. I've been a non-vegetarian all my life, turned vegetarian 5 years ago. It suits me. Does that mean I recommend vegetarianism to everyone? I don't know.
So, it's very interesting you should ask. We kind of had a small conversation before this, but first off, I wouldn't ask anyone to do anything just because of me. Look at the data, right? And in the wrong genetic pool, in the wrong patient, do eating more of something with high cholesterol, high fat, whatnot, meaning people with primary risk factors, you will be at risk, right? Now the question comes in, meat in general. So, I am non-veg, as you know, but all of my relatives from 2 generations ago were all veg, katta veg. My grandma would throw the pan out if you had an egg fried in it. And, they grew up in Kokern and the usual suspects, Kokarnast, Brahmin, whatever. And the interesting part is it doesn't matter how you perceive that. I think for me personally, I've seen a lot of documentaries on this. I've looked at the data, and some part of me wants to become vegan for other reasons. One is sustainability, right? Animal agriculture has a very high toll on the planet. We're already talking about, greenhouse gases and lack of the ozone, and if you've seen some of the documentaries, 600 liters of water being consumed, and water is a precious commodity. But the second and third reasons are very clear. The second one is I'm an animal advocate. And so I have, joined hands with various groups to support these things. I've adopted a lot of strays, and, I don't like how the animals are treated, whether they're free range or not. If you can live on no meat and still persist, why wouldn't you? The third reason is from a health perspective, the animal fats are more injurious than the vegetable-borne things. Let me put this in context, though. If you have a genetic makeup where you are depositing fat and have a abnormal lipid metabolism,
which is the case for the subcontinent?
It is, for the most part. Then even being veg doesn't matter, right? If you have morbid obesity, diabetes, all these other risk factors, it doesn't matter if you're veg or non-veg, you're still going to have risk for heart disease. So I don't think it's as clear that one versus the other is there. But for the other several reasons which we've quoted, I do think it's beneficial. And then the last thing is just the feel-good factor, right? I'm lactose intolerant, so milk products I can't drink and without getting bloating and all the other issues. And that, by the way, genetically, they consider 85% of non-whites to be, to some degree, lactose intolerant, whether they know it or not. They may have the bloating, feel like they have to go to the bathroom, burping, stomach upset, whatnot, and not attribute it to lactose. But they probably have it. Whereas, and it's thought to be there because we have a lot of sunlight to convert vitamin D3. So after childhood, you don't really need milk to supplement for the vitamin D3. Whereas in the Nordic countries where there's less sun and the winters are longer and you need the milk throughout your life. And so in Caucasians, oftentimes they won't have it. 85% will be non-lactose intolerant and 15% will be lactose intolerant. So that's an interesting aside. But the point is, I wouldn't miss that part, the meat and all that. So I'm exploring now, just between you and me. And I think India's one place where the veg is so doggone good.
Very easy to be veg in this country.
110%. And I'll tell you, my my folks immigrated from here to London in 63, and then from London to the US in 73. I was born in London, but it was very hard in those days to be strict veg. People did it, but it kind of ostracized you. And that's not an excuse. But the point is that we grew up eating meat, right? And now moving back to India, I would be very happy with pure veg because the food is so doggone good here. Whether you go north, south, east, west, it's amazing, right? And so I don't think there would be any qualms in my life, and I think I could do it. And then the last thing, I have a lot of friends who own these companies that make synthetic meat, right? Either it's actually manufactured from proteins, or the alternative is it's meat lookalikes. I'm like, why do you have to do that? The veg is so doggone good that you really don't need to have the meat. But I think it's for the people who eat meat who need that kind of hand-holding period to make the progression. And so I do think as a planet, we'd probably be healthier for various reasons, which you've outlined. But am I proposing that you push on? No, I'm not.
The reason I'm listening to you very keenly about this answer is because everything you speak is data driven.
Yep. I try to make it, but honestly, I mean, there's going to be people who are going to fight me on this because they're meat eaters. And even the red meat stuff with colonic cancer and other things, particularly the cured meats, which have nitrites and things in them, there is some data which suggests that the incidence is higher. What's not clear to me, if you look in the European countries, the Western countries like London or the US, the colon cancer rates are much higher. But some of that may be because they're eating much more meat because their vegetable growing cycle is low, or it used to be. Now it's changed, right? They import everything. But their lifestyle or habits may be that they eat more meat and less veggies. The other thing for me, and I'll be very candid with you, that I'm, if not bodybuilding, at least staying in massive shape. And the only struggle for me is getting enough protein. And how much dal can you eat before you get gassy and have other issues? But that's a separate issue. The main thing is I can't eat paneer. And so because of the milk products. And so I struggle with that. And that's the one thing I'm trying to overcome and figure out how to do it without compromising. But I don't know, long term, you grow out of it as you get older and say, whatever, maybe I'm not Arnold Schwarzenegger. I should have never been. And maybe just be a little more ripped and lean. And because I was a cross country runner for most of my life, or playing tennis, and in Taekwondo, you needed that muscle mass to win.
But from a heart disease perspective, there is no data-driven guideline that says
veg alone will do it. Well, I mean, look at the data, right? I mean, heart disease is rampant all across India, and it is not univariable. It's multivariable, right? And so if we understand that, let me give you an example. If you're eating lean meat, right, and you're not consuming it in large proportions, and your cholesterol and all the other variables are managed, and you don't have diabetes, why would you have a much higher rate? The cancer risk is different, and that's for, nitrosamine, nitrites from cured meat and things like that, and also from lack of vegetables. We don't see as high a rate in India, mainly because we eat a lot of veg. There's a lot of fiber in our diet, but versus someone who is a vegetarian and eats just about anything under the sun and with a lot of oil and other things, I think you could have an equally dangerous lifestyle. So I think what it comes down to is your risk factors and monitoring and mitigating those. But to say one is better than the other, I do it for those reasons I've alluded to. But to tell someone who's eating meat, if you're doing it in a reasonable fashion and this is what you enjoy, feel free so long as your risk factors are managed, right?
If you take care about how your body looks visually, and that doesn't mean you need to be ripped. You just need to look like Dr. Nene.
Thank you.
Like your stomach is flat, your shoulders are broad, you
look
look
strong. It wasn't
strong.
always, I tell you that much. I mean, it went through phases. It was when I was 20, then about somewhere between 35 and 45, I started getting the 40-man punch.
Really?
Yeah. And then I'll show you some pictures that'll blow your mind.
When I look at you right now, I feel like you've really taken care of yourself throughout your life.
I'm doing better. But the thing is, I'm the first to tell you, it takes no time to gain weight and takes forever to lose it. And honestly, it's about discipline. My wife is so much more disciplined because she's in front of the camera all the time. For me, I'm only now in front of the camera. But the thing is, I love to live, right? I love to experience. And so what that means to me is that I have to do it in very careful amounts, right? Don't overeat, limit or eliminate your alcohol intake, be sensible about your sleep, make sure you drink enough water, and then make sure that your mind is always focused and mindful, meditate, and I've talked about this on the channel and other things. And I just think if you start to do that on a qualified basis, you'll have a better life.
Hey, if you enjoyed this clip from the Ranveer Show, we've uploaded a ton of other clips related to a ton of other topics. So explore the channel because there's something for everyone.